Thank you, everybody, and welcome to our webinar with Beth Galton, who's also an APA member tonight. Thank you all for coming. Before we get started, let me say a few words about APA for those of you who found us on Eventbrite and aren't sure what APA is. APA stands for American Photographic Artists, and APA New York is the New York chapter. APA exists to provide business tools that help photographic artists of all levels run a smarter, more creative and profitable business. And we've been doing it for over 40 years. APA has a strong heritage of providing benefits, which help our members achieve creative and financial success. Our benefits come in many forms, and by joining APA, individual artists join a community which can amplify their voice on the national stage. And joining is easy. I'll put the link in the Q&A when Beth is talking, and you can cut and paste it out. But APA New York is the Northeast Regional Chapter of American Photographic Artists, the country's leading not-for-profit advocacy organization for commercial photographers. And if you're from around joining us from around the country, we have chapters in other places around the country. So now to introduce Beth. We've had Beth speak before. She's not only a wonderful, wonderful photographer, she's also a terrific speaker. I don't want to build you up too much and make you nervous. But Beth is a photo-based artist with an educational background in the natural sciences and 3 decades of experience as commercial and editorial photography. These elements form the lens through which she explores the world. Beth's path is rooted in a childhood animated with Marvel comics, choral music, and the chaotic and composed meals she had at home and abroad. Drawn to the organic classicism of Edward Weston, her work is informed by her sensitivity to how light falls and shapes a subject. Beth's fine art and professional work has won numerous accolades and is exhibited extensively throughout her career. And right now, the reason we're doing this talk right now, it's really exciting. Right now, Beth has a book that's going to be coming out, and she's doing a Kickstarter to fund it. And the Kickstarter is live. It's happening right now. So I think it's really cool. Anyone who's interested in doing a Kickstarter, to watch one from beginning to end, like keep checking back and see how it progresses and look at what someone who's doing a successful one is doing. I think it's really terrific. And we also just wanted to have this. Okay, someone just put best sound level seemed low but high. I don't know what that means, but in any event, I guess they want you to turn up your volume a little bit. So it's really exciting. And so she'll be telling you all about the book and the Kickstarter. And without further ado, here's Beth.
Good evening. I wanted to thank APA NY and Debbie for putting this together and allowing me to speak to everybody about the process of creating a photo book. And also I want to thank all of you for signing in. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Let me just do that. So if I had known what was involved in making a book, I'm not sure I'd have barreled into it like I have. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, and it has helped me in this particular situation. Excuse me. When I step back and I look at the process of creating this body of work, an artist book, and then one with a publisher, I see that it was a process of letting go and allowing myself to explore what might come of my ideas. I'm a risk taker, but a very calculated one. My personality and years of being a commercial photographer have trained me to be very methodical about the creative process. When I pick up a camera for any project, there are always creative risks, but I've learned how to navigate and manage it so that the results are usually pretty good. This series of images and the decisions to make both these books go totally against this training. I had to allow myself to take risks both photographically as well as conceptually in making the artist book. I took photos unlike any I'd ever taken, because if you know my work, it's usually very sharp, and these aren't. The big thing, so I had to take chances in terms of creating this book, because I took photos unlike any that I'd ever taken. I dealt with people not understanding what I was trying to say, and then jumped right into turning these images into a book not knowing how they might even be received, how the book would be received. I always wanted to make a book of my photographs, but never felt I had a body of work that was ready for print. Over the 18 months of creating these images, I realized that the only way they would communicate what I wanted them to say was to turn them into a book about the pandemic and my experience of living through it. I'm hoping tonight that you can take away some ideas for getting your own personal projects published. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the pandemic. We had just landed a huge job. It had taken a month to land it. And we were awarded it like the second week of March. And I spent the week of March 9th driving around with a stylist, checking out props, because we had 2 12-hour days scheduled where we had to create 8 setups inside of a huge stage. And every time we got out of the car and got back in the car, we sprayed ourselves down with disinfectant, hoping we wouldn't get sick. But during our prep, COVID was making the headlines of the news. On March 12th, when de Blasio declared a state of emergency, our shoot got postponed. And then came the lockdown. My son had been exposed early on by his boss, who came down with COVID and was quarantined in a studio apartment in Brooklyn. After 2 weeks, he called me and said, "Can I come home?" And I said, "Of course." And then at that point, my life became focused on feeding, organizing, and keeping us safe. This is a page from my journal. Not that I'm a great journal writer, but every so often I would kind of check in. And just before lockdown, I brought home my camera, a tripod, and a few stands from my studio, because I knew that I would probably want to take photos during the isolation. It's my way of escaping the world, and I thought this was important for me to have. So and then I started thinking about, what did I want to photograph? And at first I thought, well, why don't I, because I'm a food-based photographer, a lot of my imagery was food, why don't I start with the food that we were cleaning with Clorox wipes and washing down with bleach, and take pictures of it before I turned it into dinner. But the more I read in the news, the more I felt guilty, because I had food pouring in and so many people didn't. What I did become obsessed with were the maps and charts that were on the New York Times and Washington Post website. I was just so taken by the fact that all these little lines and dots represented people getting sick and people getting and dying from COVID. And so it seemed like I needed to start taking screen grabs of them, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but I thought there was something there. What really bothered me about the maps and charts was that, again, I touched on it, there's no humanity. You don't feel, it's just numbers of people dying. So I thought, what could I combine with them that would begin to put people back into the picture? So botanicals have always played an important role in my photographs. They represent life and nature, and I thought somehow I needed to combine the two of them. So I began printing out the screen grabs that I got, and sometimes I manipulated them in Photoshop. Sometimes I put headlines together, and I printed them on a transparency paper and then started to distress them. I set up my camera in my apartment next to a window and began to play. And there was kind of this amazing sense of freedom, because I was kind of back to basics. It kind of struck me that how little I really needed to make a photograph. I didn't need all the assistants. I didn't need the, people, the prop stylists, that I could figure out how to make this work for myself, even if I didn't have all the right tools. And if you look carefully, my tripod didn't go high enough. I took my side tables, which happened to be all the same size, to get my tripod higher. My camera was sitting on a cooler. I had to be inventive, and I had to kind of let go of all the practical ways that I'd always have run a shoot. And what I started to do is take the screen grabs and combine them with dried flowers and kind of dried dried botanicals. So I would print out the headline and chart, and I would think about what was going on in this visual and how it made me feel. And then I thought I wanted to kind of capture that in my photograph. And because the world was so chaotic and out of control, I thought I had to put motion into these images. I spent some time every day behind the camera because there was not much to do other than cooking and cleaning and ordering food and checking in with friends. And so I began to produce a tremendous number of images. And by January of 2021, I had hundreds of photos, but I didn't know what to do with them. Did they work as images? How would I present them? How would I even edit them into something that made sense to what I was trying to convey? So I heard about a workshop that Michael Foley used to teach called X Lab. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity for me to present my work and get feedback. And we would meet once a month, a group of 9 of us, and then once a month I'd meet with Michael as well. Excuse me. And to be honest, most of the times the images were not particularly well received by the group. They didn't understand what I was trying to do. The fact that they were out of focus, people couldn't relate to them. But at one point, kind of 2/3 of the way through the workshop, one classmate offhandedly said that they read like a diary of the time, and a light bulb went off in my head. And I thought, even though I feel like my writing is not very strong, I needed to consider putting writing with these images. So when part of the workshop was that you have a show at the end in Michael's gallery, old gallery. And I decided that I had to start writing what I was thinking when I was taking these photographs. And I was incredibly fortunate because my niece, who grew up in Seattle, moved to New York at that time and was staying with me, and she was a writer. So I would write down my feelings and thoughts, and then working with her, we would kind of edit it down so they became more haiku-like. I'm always, because I've straddled the commercial world as well as doing personal projects, I am always sending email blasts out to potential clients to get work, to feed the personal projects. And I sent a email blast out in the in that September after Michael's class, and it went to Dudley Brooks at the Washington Post. And it happened to be a different image from a different personal project, but he called me right away and said, "Did you do this during COVID? I'm doing a magazine about what photographers shot during COVID." I said, "Well, I didn't do those, but I have others," and I sent them to him, and he loved it, and I was fortunate to get 2 full pages. But by seeing them printed this way, what it began to dawn on me was that these images were not going to work well on a wall of a gallery. What they really needed to be was in a book. So I happen to have had Mary Virginia Swanson's book, publish her own photography book. I had an older version. Her new version is amazing, and I put the QR code up there. You have to go to her website if you're really serious about creating a book. There's just an amazing amount of information there. And what I took out of it was that I had to define my concept, which was to tell my story during COVID. And I needed to find a designer, and I have a dear friend who lives in Montreal who's a very talented designer, and I asked her if she would work on the book with me, and she said yes. And then once she signed on, we started talking about how we wanted the book to look. We talked to printers. I came up with a budget and realized that I could only afford indigo printing, and that I could create maybe 100 artist books that I would sign it and do an edition of based on the budget that I had. But I encourage everyone to, if you're going to do this, to talk to different people. When we ended up working with Brilliant, and the person that my connection there was really amazing and would do tests for us and helped us through the process. But all these places offer different things. Because we're kind of coming from this diary sense, a diary idea, we wanted to kind of explore what diaries look like and see if we could kind of put some of that into the book that we were creating. So we looked at ribbons and we looked at bindings and we looked at how books would put together, and kind of came up with going away from a traditional binding and using a lay flat binding. And then Sally started to do treatments with the backgrounds. And we started very simply, like on the upper left-hand side where it was just a white background. And because I'm always trying to put more in my photographs, I said to her, well, what if I create a background that can go on the other page? And I take a little element from the photograph that's on that page with it. So that's what the middle test is. And then I got really crazy. I thought, well, what if I write the copy on a piece of paper and crumple it up and put it on the background? And I photographed that, and we didn't like that. And then Sally said, well, what if I put the type on the side? And we tried that. And then as I was playing with other ideas, the sunlight came pouring in my studio, and I thought, that's what I want. I want shadows to go behind the images, because it kind of signified time. And the whole thing about the pandemic and being in isolation is that time flew by, yet it seemed endless. And I felt like the shadows would kind of would help tell the story. So I did a big exploration of shadows in my studio. Some were out of focus, some were more. I would put little bits in, and then Sally would crop and make them take the shapes that she wanted and put them behind the image. At that point too, we edited down the images that I wanted in the book. I started writing. These are pages out of a PDF that I kept, where I kept track of what I wrote, and then I would rewrite it and keep information about the images so that I could kind of refer back to it. So once we had a PDF together, I knew that I needed to get some feedback. You know, Sally and I were working in the ozone by ourselves, and I needed to make sure that I hadn't gone off the deep end, that somebody would look at this and say, it's okay, it's good. So I sent it to Michael, and he gave us some feedback. And then I happen to belong to the Center for Photographic Art, which is in Carmel, California. And it's a fantastic gallery and a group of people. And they, for $25, you can have a portfolio with Anne. And I had met Anne at a portfolio review at another time, and I thought she would be a good person to talk to. So what she said when I got on the phone with her is that her first thing was that this is really powerful, and it's so intense I couldn't get through it. I had to put it down. And in talking about it, we realized, you know, that you know, having serious image after serious image needed to be broken up. And she suggested that maybe we came up with the idea of using the shadow pictures as also a way to kind of give yourself a little breather. So I'm going to show you pages of the book. So this was the opening page, and then we would have the snippets of words that we would edit, that Claire and I would edit down. And there's, you know, the economics of safety. I'm encouraging New Yorkers to go on with their lives and get out into town. And then that was March 2nd, and by March 12th, we were in lockdown. June 14th, COVID symptoms. As of now, it affects the brain, eyes, nose, and blood. October 14th, 2020, where the virus was. After a summer of some respite, it is building again. December 1st, 2020, on his watch, all preventable had it not been politicized. And December 4th, lockdowns, cases, deaths, cases exponentially grow. And then again here, I put these pages in, still with information, but not with imagery. Fauci and other US officials stressed the urgency of vaccinations and their safety. September 13th, 2021, new normal, apps, cards, mandates. So then we went to Press with Brilliant. Here's a little booklet, a video, so you can kind of get a sense of the size of the book and how we laid it out. It's better than a PDF. It kind of gives you a haptic sense of the book. And I don't remember if I said it. It ended up being 7 by 9 inches. And assembling this book was a labor of love, utilizing friends and family. We wanted to package it so that we could ship it easily. And I couldn't help but roll it through the shadows of my windows. So the way that we packaged it is I really wanted that the maps somehow to be incorporated into the book. And they weren't in the interior pages, so we thought, what if we made a cover for the book and tied it with a ribbon, kind of reminiscent of the diary idea. And then we package it in a cardboard box. And then when it comes out, you can see this is how it unwraps. So, I managed to get 100 books printed, signed, ready to go. I sent them out to friends, to some people who had asked for them. And then, of course, I had no plan to really sell them. So I put things on my Instagram, but it was I was very ill prepared to really market them. So I thought I need to get this book out in the world. And I signed up for Photo Lucida, which is a portfolio review in Portland, Oregon. And I can't stress how important these reviews are, because you really get to network and meet people. And it was there where I met Bill Boland of Fall Line Press. He was one of my last reviews. I was hesitant. I didn't know if he would be the right person for me. And I showed him the book, and he was quite taken by it, but he was kind of a little standoffish, saying that, well, I think this is really interesting. I think we should stay in touch. It was encouraging, but not like I wasn't walking out with a deal. And the important thing about these reviews and these get-togethers is that you get to meet people and network. And at the end of Photo Lucida, they have a big party, and we were all sitting around, and I was talking to Anne, and Bill wandered over, and I was talking to some other people, and Bill eventually said to Anne and to me, I'm going out to dinner with a group of people. Do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. I want to see the other people I want to see. And then I thought, I'm nuts if I don't go with him. I have to go have dinner with him. So I went and had dinner, and it was because of this dinner, we got to know each other. And by the end of the dinner, as we were leaving, he says, I want to do your book. I will be in touch with you. So I highly, highly encourage these kinds of interactions. And what I put on the screen is a QR code for Lens Scratch. And it's a fabulous website, if you don't know about it, that publishes photographers' work. And as well, there's a listing in there of portfolio reviews, calls for entries. So you can always find out what's going on and what's close to you, or where's some exotic place you want to go that have your work reviewed. And then on the right-hand side, I put in, this is an upcoming review at Photo Nola in New Orleans. And the reason why I put this in is because the way that I go about picking people is really important. That you just don't say, oh, I'm going to go to a photo review, and you have a list of all these people, and you just take whoever you can get. That's kind of what I did the first time. I did that when I went to excuse me, a portfolio review in France. I was too late signing up, and I just took who I could get. But now what I'm very specific about, like when I went to Photo Lucida, I knew that I wanted to see book publishers. So I would look on this list and say, look at the book publishers, read about them, and I can't stress enough that you think about who you want to see and who might your work fit with. So after, so Bill and I spent a lot of time discussing negotiating a contract. And I'm going to say that most photo books are self-funded these days. There are, I mean, if you're famous, then they won't be self-funded, but I'm not anywhere near that. And I knew that I would have to self-fund this. And what I really liked about Fallline Press and Bill and the people that worked there was that they ran Kickstarters all the time, and they got their books funded this way. So that was what encouraged me to sign the contract with him. And soon after, I went to Georgia, where he's based, and went to his farm, and we sat and we went through the images and talked about what I saw for the book. And what I knew I didn't want was I didn't want to recreate the artist's book. I had that already. There was no reason to spend the money, invest all this time to recreate the same exact book, even though it would have been sold, would have had a marketing plan behind it. But so when I was there, we kind of sorted out what we wanted to do. And I kind of left Georgia and said, okay, I need to do some soul searching. So I called my friend Betty and I said, can I come to your house in the country and sit in the upstairs bedroom and look at the pond and do some writing? And she said yes. So I spent 3 days in her upstairs bedroom, giving myself breaks every so often. And I began to write down my emotions and my thoughts that I had during the pandemic. That how I felt, all the information that was coming in, the physical actions that I did, cooking meals, baking bread, washing our food, connecting with people through IG and Facebook, reading the news. So I kind of broke it down so I could kind of see those were again some of that was part of the feeling of the pandemic for me. And then I went to my iPhone photos and started pulling iPhone photos. Because as a visual person, it's kind of where I have to start. I can connect with my emotions, but I still need to be able to put pictures with these emotions. So I began to kind of organize them and write them and put writing with them. Like the image on the upper left, it says, baking bread. I become the parent once again. The recorder of achievements, the person who consoles when the bread doesn't rise. I ask questions, order flour, support the efforts of baking the next loaf. The one to sweep up the flour that has fallen on the floor. I start eating bread when I have sworn off of it for the last year, all in the effort to be okay. So I kind of organized my photos around events that happened in my home or in the world. And I created pages and pages of this, which I then sent to Bill and Harry, who was the managing editor, and Sally, who we decided we wanted to still work on the books, and she knew the material so well. And we had a couple of different meetings based around what I had written. And what we came up with was that this book had to reflect my experience and the emotions during the pandemic. And since this is what drove me to create the images that I had in the artist book, it would need to be a mixture of a diary and fine art images. So what I began to do was with Bill and Sally and Harry, we created a PDF and we just started putting information up there so that everybody could access it since everything was being done remotely. And it was really up to Sally and with some of my I was talking to her, but to take this idea of combining the diary and my emotional diary, written diary, and the photographs and kind of put it together. And what she felt was that she needed to create an arc, which I totally agreed with. And so this is her first draft, and she broke it down so that it said, so it's kind of like the working ideas for pacing. COVID, a love story. The beginning, it's based around like a rom-com. The beginning, how it started, getting cozy, staying at home, stay busy, first fight Real Fears, News Overwhelms, The In-Laws, When Politics Intersects Health, Engagement, The Joy and Burden of Vaccines, The Ending, How It's Going. And then she created these pages using my copy that I had created that you just saw, and taking some of my iPhone photos. And then it would be, and again, this is a rough, super rough draft, it's just 3 pages, but then, and then you would see the hero photos. So we all, she presented it to us and we all loved it. And at that point, it was, the burden was on her to design it, as well as Fall Line Press had worked with Amy Bonifants, who's an amazing writer and poet, and they wanted her to rewrite my writing, and then which Sally would then take and put into the new book. I also wanted somebody to write a foreword, and through a friend, I found Joan Duncan Oliver, who had lived through the pandemic in New York. It was really important to find somebody to write about it who had been here as well. And I loved a ton of her writing, and it really works well with what I've written. So once we were into this whole, into like solving problems, creating what the book was going to look like, I went to lots of bookstores, book fairs, took lots of pictures at things that caught my attention. And again, if you're considering making a book, I highly recommend that you go to book fairs and festivals. And this website on the far right has lists of all the different book fairs all over the world. It's fantastic. So because we're working remotely, I'm taking lots of pictures of books that I like. Like I thought that the book in the middle of the pink book with the fold over it was kind of interesting, kind of felt like a diary a little bit. And then the white book with the indentations I thought was just so beautiful. And then I really got caught up with this idea of vellum being put into the books that would lay over a photograph or over type. And the one thing that wasn't in the rough draft that Sally had done was there was the shadow pictures were missing. And I thought, what if we print the shadow pictures on vellum and lay it over the chapter, the chapter openings where you would see some type. So this was my rough draft. We wanted to see if it would really work. I printed it out on tracing paper and put it in a book. And we thought, oh, this will be amazing. So we decided we would go ahead with that. And it took a while of talking to printers, making sure that we could how we could make it work. Fall Line Press had produced this book by Brittany Lauber. It's 9 by 12, and it has an open spine. And Harry, the managing editor, had sent it to Sally and I, and we both fell in love with how the book looked and how the book felt. And we thought there's kind of an honest quality to this that I thought this would work for my book. So these are pages out of the final layout. And you can see how it got refined and there was less copy. Joan's forward is up above, but it kind of took on a greater dimension than the artist's book. So once we got the book in a form of like, okay, we're almost ready to go to the printer, then I had to start thinking about marketing, which was my downfall the last time. I mean, I was thinking about it all along the way, but there was really nothing I could do until we had a book design and a deadline of when it was going to go to the printer. So we started breaking down the tools that we would need to do marketing. Social media, email lists, newsletters, press release, possibly finding corporate sponsors, utilizing my website, and most importantly, creating a Kickstarter. So the first thing I had to do was create a dummy book and create photographs so it looked like there was actually a book. So I used Brittany's book to kind of lay prints in so that you would get a sense of what the book was going to look like. And then the next thing to tackle was the Kickstarter. We had to determine how much money to raise, create a video. You have to put a story into the Kickstarter, what the book's going to be about. That's what the story is. You have to figure out rewards for contributors, shipping costs, and the length of the campaign. And Fall Line Press was really helpful in kind of helping me determine a lot of these things. So one of the first things we did was create a video. And Sally, again, Sally was really, besides being a designer, she's also comes out of the advertising world. So she was very involved in the marketing. Welcome to my Kickstarter. My name is Beth Galton. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I've made my living as a commercial photographer, raised my son with my partner here in the Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan. In March of 2020, the COVID pandemic hit North America. New York City quickly became the epicenter. Everyone reacted and responded in their own way. I became obsessed with the Washington Post and New York Times websites, looking at the maps and charts, looking for a glimmer of hope. But everything that I read was incredibly anxiety-producing. As New York shut down, I quickly ran to my studio and grabbed a camera and a couple of stands. Creating a makeshift studio using what was at hand, I first began photographing life at home. But I quickly turned back to the screen grabs that I was capturing. I began to print them out, and I thought, I need to use these somehow. They were so analytical and never represented the emotional toll of the people that were being affected by the pandemic. Botanicals always played an important role in my photographs, representing life and nature, and I thought somehow I needed to combine the two, and then images began to emerge. Being able to process this time through the lens of my camera became really critical for me. And after 18 months, I found I had a body of work that told my story. The resulting images became COVID Diary, a book that I'm working on with Fall Line Press out of Atlanta, Georgia, that will be published this fall. Today, I'm coming to you to ask for your support to help make this come to life. Everyone has their own story about the year that the pandemic stopped us in our tracks. I deeply believe in the power of telling stories, to use our voices to say, I am here. You are not alone. So I want to stress that we thought a lot about what we wanted the video to say. Sally and I looked at lots of Kickstarters to see what ones were successful. And what we ended up coming up with was that we wanted it to be as simple and straightforward as possible. It was all shot with the iPhone. I had a friend, Claudio, who recorded and shot the footage. Sally wrote the script. And then her son did the editing of the material. And then her husband, who's a composer, put the sound behind it. So it was a real group effort. But again, we wanted it to tell a story without being too slick. Like, especially coming from the commercial world, I could have erred in that way. But we thought it would take away from the project. So Sally then worked on the story, and these are pages of the story. Like if you scroll down in a Kickstarter, it tells the story that in a short way. And again, everything is built so it keeps telling the same message. This is what the book is about. This is what to expect. This is what the photographs are, without giving too much away so that people will want to buy it. We had to create rewards. And we studied what other people gave away for rewards, and I picked what felt comfortable for me. Some people do postcards, some people do bags. It's really in terms of how your work lends itself for the rewards. And then came the social media. We had to plan social media for the month of Kickstarter. You can see our little grid for Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We worked on a email blast that was a studio newsletter that announced the Kickstarter and would send people there. I used MailChimp, and I input names of people that come to my open studio, people that I meet at portfolio reviews, friends, family, and then clients, as well as I get lists of people that I'd like to work for out of agency access. So I have that all in my database. I tag them so that I can send specific emails to who I want to go. And then at the same time, I had to start telling people that this is what I'm doing. And I contacted organizations that I've been involved with. I've been involved with Workbook and EdEdge for a long time, and APA, and said, look, I'm launching a book. And they were kind enough to say, will you talk to us about it? So I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing this talk, and I have to be, it's like important for me to get myself out there, even though it's not what I usually do. We also had to create a press release because, we have this thought of maybe we can find corporate donors, as well as sending it to places to speak, places to get their interest. So we created a press release and we kept it short, but again, telling the story. And then we created a PDF, which is those 3 smaller pieces on the screen that made a PDF so that you could quickly see the book, some images, and get a sense of what it's going to be like. We've tried to stay organized. It's a Google Doc of who we're sending it to, what we're trying to get, who's responsible for what kind of responses we get. And then lastly, it was, I had a meeting with Chef Carla. I'm going to have a talk with her. And she's like, well, what are you doing with your website? And I went, oh my God, I forgot about my website. So we quickly put a link to Kickstarter on my commercial website, which is on the left. And then my fine art website, we were able to put a little card up that says, sign up for your newsletter, and here's a link to the Kickstarter. So the idea with all the marketing is to get it to keep circulating around and trying to drive people to the Kickstarter. So, as you put these things together, it's kind of one foot in front of the other. And it's hard to always think about what's the next step. And now that I've gotten to this step, I realize that even if I get it funded and I give the book to Bill and he sells it, I still have a lot more to do. I have to support them. I have to go to book signings. I have to go to portfolio reviews and see if I can find a museum that might be interested in selling the book or having a show of prints in the book. It continues. It's not something that you just make the book and then you put it on the shelf and it's done, unless that's what you want to do. But my goal here is to get the books to sell and to kind of help set me off in the fine art world that shows that I have a book under my belt that's successful. But none of this could be done without the incredible support that I've had from a team. And it's really important for all of you to understand that I did not do this alone. I had early feedback from my sister and my friend Betty. I had professional support from Ann Jastra and Michael Foley. My retoucher did all the color editing so that we had to, when we went to do the indigo prints, we had to change everything to CMYK. And if you notice, a lot of the images are black, and I really wanted to make sure that it was going to print okay. And then design and marketing support with Sally Hearn. She was essential. She's kind of like the glue behind all this. And then the video was done by her son and my friend Claudio. And then I had 2 interns. I've been fortunate to have 2 interns, as well as my niece, who kind of helped with all the things, all these little pieces that have to get put together. And then there was a tremendous amount of support from Bill Bowling and Harry Wyman, the publishing company. And then the writing. Amy Bonifants, Joan Duncan Oliver, and my niece Claire, who helped with the artist book. So that's this is my Kickstarter. There's my QR card if you want to go to it and see it. I really encourage, especially if you're going to do a Kickstarter, to look at my Kickstarter, look at other Kickstarters, see what you like about them, what makes them successful. And that's it.
Hey,
Okay.
hey
I'll
Beth.
stop sharing. Right?
Okay, yeah. If anyone has questions now, put them in either the Q&A or the chat. The chat's been enabled. Thank you. That was really terrific. It really takes a village. It's a lot of people helping you because a lot of people want to do it themselves, or or don't know who to go to. But would you have ever attempted this by yourself without all the help?
Again, I was pretty naive about it when I first started. And I kind of learned along the way. Now that I know this, I would never do it again without making sure that I had help. I couldn't have done it. You need feedback. You need somebody who's going to say, I can take the design. Sally's so strong in design and in marketing, and she can make sure that the voice in all the marketing is consistent. That's not something that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I can take pictures. I can do the writing that can be edited. I could, and it was important for me to understand what I could do and what help I needed from other people.
Yeah. How long was the process from the point you decided you wanted to do a book to getting to be on press? Like, how many months was it?
So, the first artist book, I decided that I wanted to do it in September, and it was completed by February. We had it done. This book, I signed the contract, I think, in 22, and then Sally got really busy on another project, and it kind of sat for a little while. And in a way, I think it was good. It kind of gave us time to digest where COVID was going, what we wanted the book to do, and then we kind of kicked it into gear. Let's see, probably this past spring, probably May, we started really working hard, and we've been really cranking on it every day since May.
I would say that I've supported photo books on Kickstarter before, but my favorite book that I've ever gotten was the Rodney King book, the one with the red hat on the cover. I got it when it was a Kickstarter, and it actually is the most beautiful book I've ever seen. His wife was a designer, did his amazing photographs. His wife, as designer, did the design of the book, and it is a beautifully designed book as well. But and I know once it was funded, I think there's been another printing besides the first printing, but it was fully funded. It is interesting to go on Kickstarter. Don't just look at the Kickstarters that are current, but you can look for past Kickstarters, and you can see if they were successful, if they were fully funded or not, and try to analyze, why they weren't. For those of you who are watching who are thinking of doing a Kickstarter, I mean, I've seen some that weren't successful, but the video is a person like sitting on an unmade bed talking to the camera, or there's something just, something odd, this one person, I saw a photographer was funding not a book, but it was a project, and she had all these little pledge levels, but the top one was $1,500, and for $1,500 you can have lunch with me in my luxury Manhattan loft. And I'm thinking, if she's saying she has a luxury Manhattan loft, why is someone going to pay money to support she, so it wasn't thought out.
You have to be really thoughtful about it. I mean, because I'm a still life photographer, and I'm like very methodical about what I do. I probably am a little over the top. Everybody doesn't have to be like that. But but planning out what you want to say is really important. I think that's really critical before you launch a quick Kickstarter.
Yeah. You're getting a lot of comments saying how great the presentation was. So thanks, Beth. So helpful, but daunting. Thanks, Beth. This was fabulous. A great presentation of the enormous and involved task covering the steps of your book. The project is fantastic. Yeah. So, and someone has asking, is this going to be posted somewhere? This is being recorded, and we will hopefully be posting it on YouTube on the APA YouTube channel. So keep checking the APA, American Photographic Artists YouTube channel. If you go to just APA, it'll take you to the American Psychological Association. But look for us on YouTube, and eventually it will go up. We're going to try to get it up as soon as possible. Because how much time do you have left in your Kickstarter?
We have 15 days left. Yeah, we're about halfway through.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that, it's, I know there are stats. Someone said, Amelia says, beautiful book. I can't wait to have my own copy. Yes, very helpful, but daunting. So sounds like she's going to pledge to get a book. But someone says, very inspiring. So yeah. Oh, and I wanted to mention, you mentioned the Mary Virginia Swanson book.
Yes.
We had her come and speak last year, and we have her Mary Virginia and also Darius Himes autographed their books, and we have 6 left. If anyone is interested in autographed versions of this book, we have 6 left, and email me. They're $45, and I will put you in touch how you can pay the publisher but pick them up here in New York. So it really is an amazing book.
It is an amazing book. I want to say that it I hope that I didn't make it sound too daunting. That part of it is that it's a process, and I didn't really understand the process when I first started, and as I went through it, I began to see the process, and it because I believe so thoroughly that these images that I created need to be in a book. It was like I just plugged through it, and when something came up, we solved a problem, we figured it out, and I encouraged other people, even though it seems daunting, that as long as you have a good designer and you have somebody, you have friends who will help you, you can, there's always a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Well, plus it was daunting because you were figuring it out as you were going along, but anyone watching this has the advantage of hearing what you did, so they don't have to plod along so much. Because they're,
And if they're, and Swanee's book has a lot of information.
Yeah.
You just dig through it and pull what is right for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And if there aren't any more questions, oh wait, there's questions in the Q&A. Okay, are there some prominent reviews that you would suggest other than NOLA? And how much do you think is a good amount to spend for submission? I'm in the process of submitting to the Chico review for 2025.
I've heard that Chico is really good. I have a friend who went to it and he thought it was great. I think I've heard really good things about Photonola. There's one in Denver in March that looks really interesting. Where else are there? Center is always a great one to apply to. Center out of Santa Fe. What else? I'm drawing a blank. They're expensive, so you have to pick and choose. It's not something that if I do one a year, maybe that's the extent of it. But I do it where I think that I can get interesting people to talk to, and you can also do it online. I just did it with the Los Angeles group. There's a group in LA called LACP, and they had a fabulous listing of people, and we did it on Zoom, and it was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah. Someone named Michael asked whose book you just recommended. It's this book. It's called Publish Your Photography Book by Darius Himes and Mary Virginia Swanson. This is like the Bible of self-publishing. would you say? And Mayor Virginia Swanson, AKA Swanee, is someone who does reviews sometimes, and she's someone who's a great resource.
Yes, she is. You can also work with her. I know that she works with people privately. But I think, I've watched videos that she's done too, and that, they're two, her bent is like, how personal can you make them? And many of the books that she talks about are kind of one of a kind, two of a kind, which I think is really interesting also. That what's great about the book is it kind of expands what a book is. It can be with the publisher, it could be artist book, it could be three of a kind. There's so many different ways to approach it. It could be a Zine, right? There's no set way that it's really what your work lends itself to.
Yeah. Well, I know there's some people that do a small printing and then each book comes with a print. So that's, one way of marketing both your prints and your books. And that's the kind of thing that most people who do that are with a gallery, but you can be marketing your own work, but you have to sort of have developed your mailing list and that's something everyone can start, even if you're not ready to do a book and you're a long way in the future. Start developing your mailing lists now and your online audience, but try to convert as much as your social media audience to actual emails is what I know a lot of people suggest, because you can have lots of Instagram followers or Facebook followers, but something can happen and change that platform and you can lose those followers. So the important thing is to try to convert, once they're following you for a while, try to also get them on your email mailing list, because then you don't lose them. If Instagram takes down your account, as
That happens
so
to you.
people, or some billionaire buys it and completely changes it. Yeah, but yeah, so that's
Yeah.
how do you feel about, like, I'm sure you were developing your mailing list long before you ever thought about doing a book.
I have been. Yes, I've been doing it for probably the last 4 or 5 years. I think MailChimp is amazing because I'll send these email blasts out, and I can see who's opened the emails. And like this last round, I added in museums and art galleries. I picked some museums and art galleries, and it's interesting to see that they opened up the emails, and sometimes they would go to the website or the Kickstarter. And I look at it as like it's planting seeds. I don't really expect that this person's going to now contact me. It's just like getting my name out there and having people know that I exist. And I think if I can do that, it's very successful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, that's all of the questions that we have. And thank you so much, Beth, for doing this. And best of luck with the rest of your Kickstarter. And I look forward to the book getting published and doing a book signing at some point when it's out.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And but look at our website, apany.com. Right on the front page, you'll see all of our upcoming events. So thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Beth. And good night, everybody.
Good night.